So welcome to another Done Deal. I'm here with Brock Pierce, who has done some very special things in his life, but I want to focus on what we tend to care about the most here, which is the deal making and the investing. And so I'll introduce Brock, and you are the founder and leader of Blockchain Capital. BitChain Capital is available. I'll sell that URL for, I currently own it. And happy to. All right. So, Blockchain Capital is an investor in Bitcoin and cryptocurrency technologies. That's an area that you're an expert in. How did you get into cryptocurrency? If you type in Brock Pearson, cryptocurrency, blockchain, Bitcoin, then the whole internet opens up, and you see that you're really at the sharp tip of the spear for these kinds of technologies.
Well, I think a big part of it is being early. In the world of sort of cryptocurrencies or blockchain technology, if you have been in the business for a year, you're a veteran. It's kind of like the internet days of like 1995.
Yeah.
I'm
a social media ninja.
Exactly.
Right? I've been doing it for 11 minutes.
Exactly.
Okay.
So it's a big part of it is being early. And I got into the business in the late 90s. You had the emergence of games that were networked or online and persistent in nature, where you had assets that existed, even though you logged off, you'd come back on and those things still existed there with other people. And so I recognized that digital assets had value, although they were intangible, which is a simple insight. And I think most interesting deals and opportunities come out of identifying a simple insight. And that was, just because something was intangible didn't mean it didn't have value.
So I had 2 healths in Doom, and I logged off, and I came on back onto Doom multiplayer or whatever, and those 2 healths were still there. And so then you're the person that goes, those aren't 2 healths that I had left over. That's cryptocurrency. That's cryptocurrency, and it's worth something.
Yeah. So it started in games. So I started making a market for digital assets, currencies, and items and things of that nature around the video game space. Initially, had that insight and call it 1997, 1998. But I was busy, focused on building another business at the time, and then I came back and revisited that in 2000, 2001, and so I said, let's start buying and selling essentially gold in World of Warcraft or Second Life, and made a market, built that business, took it from 0 to 100 million in revenue in the first few years. And this is right after the dot-com bust, meaning there was no capital raising.
Yeah.
The idea of raising money for an internet company in 2001 was kind of like people would laugh at you.
Yeah.
There was no raising capital. But actually, it's a good time to build a business is in a bear market, because markets are very rational in the sense that there's not going to be any crazy behavior of people spending more than a user is worth to acquire them.
So I think we're going to learn a lot about the blockchain and about Bitcoin in the course of talking to you, but I wanted to put a little bit of focus on it for the things that I care about. Invite you to my office to film and spend a bunch of your time, and I appreciate it, to talk about the things that I want to talk about. So it is easier to raise money, get attention, when you are on an emerging or leading edge kind of business, okay? And so how do you, in your career, have identified trend lines that are things that are leading edge, right? Because it just makes life easier. There's less competition, there's less provability, defensibility about your plans, there's less scrutiny, and there's a lot more excitement and more sexiness. That's 5 awesome things to have in a deal. The only trick is you have to be on a real trend line that people believe is really going to happen. So have you set out to identify trend lines, or do they just sort of fall in your lap?
Well, earlier in my entrepreneurial career, like a lot of people, you identify through your own life experience a problem or a need, and you go, oh, let me make a business out of that. And that's kind of where I started. But no, as you learn, and you're around the track a couple of times, you learn it's really about identifying global macro trends, stepping back and saying, how is the world evolving? And start saying, what is the world going to look like in 5 or 10 years? And start building a business to meet yourself at that point 5 or 10 years out. And so I look at everything from a very global sort of macro perspective. And the space I'm working in now, it's total addressable market. How big is the market? How big can it be at scale? Assuming that it actually succeeds or takes off in the way that you think. And blockchain technology and things like Bitcoin are basically playing in the largest market there is.
So,
It's not a big pond, it's call it a big blue ocean.
So I'm fascinated by that. I'm fascinated by your mind, right? Because it is very has a lot of breadth but depth as well, and you really see you're at the heart of what's happening with money, cryptocurrency, and you're investing in that market, and you're seeing the leading edge of the formation of the next economy. And so that is fascinating to me, and I feel like we could talk for hours, and I'd be learning the whole time you're talking. But just to slow it down for a second. Brock Pierce can do these things, okay? And you have so much experience, and you're at the leading edge of money and currency. Can Joe Bag of Donuts business guy out there do anything that you do? Are you a super normal, advanced human species that can assess trend lines, deploy capital, understand macro trends? But can a guy running an e-commerce website in Kansas think about trend lines? And
I like to think so.
Okay.
I don't think I'm that special.
I know. I talked to you for an hour now, and I'm like amazed at the depth and sophistication of your thought process.
Well, what I do is I go identify an opportunity, and some people will go, an inch deep and a mile wide. I try to pick a sector where I have some of what I'd call the prerequisite skill sets to be successful. In this area, I had, just through past experiences, some of the necessary skills to be successful in this category. And then I go an inch wide and a mile deep. It's through just dedication and hard work. I work 16-hour days. I'm pretty much working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Even my social life is deeply integrated with my work life in such a way that kind of in a Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hour, just commit yourself and do it. And I believe everyone's capable of just about anything if you commit yourself to it.
Let me test that, right? So let me test that. You and I invent a business here. Let's take away what you know, right? So you can't lever, you can't use your capital, and
Sounds like a fun exercise.
You can't use your relationships, you can't breathe air, drink water, no. Let's take away currency, let's take away the word crypto, let's take away media and entertainment, and let's see, we are in logistics, right?
Okay.
We can use drones, and obviously pizza delivery and marijuana delivery and tracking of trucks and all been done. So how do we think about trend lines and find ourselves a decent business idea that would be sexy, that would be on a global macro trend, that would utilize technology, that we could get people excited about?
Not areas that I have expertise in, but I see a couple of macro trends in this area. I mean, obviously you've got kind of what is happening with Uber, and I think of Uber more as a logistics company than I think of it as a, call it a replacement for taxis. And I think that hence the reason they're seeing this sort of market cap today. There's another macro trend that's interesting, aside from drones, which would be 3D printing.
Yeah.
And I'm really fascinated by that trend line, because if you think about kind of the global supply chain and manufacturing in places like China, I think that the entire global supply chain of the world is about to change, because I don't think you're going to have things manufactured in the developing world and then put on boats and shipped over here from a logistics perspective. Products are going to be manufactured or printed near the point of consumption.
The giant plastic Santa.
Yes.
They don't want to get it from China.
Well, but it's not going to be all plastic either. We can
Fair.
print organs at this point, and food.
Yeah.
Funny enough, Intellectual Ventures has got patents on printing strawberries and things. You start thinking about, where do I think the world's going to be in 10 years? And as an entrepreneur, you want to be building to that future.
Yeah.
Not, if you're building something for a market that you believe exists today, you're already going to miss the mark.
Yeah.
And so I think that the intersection of 3D printing, logistics, potentially drones, we could make a fun business with a lot of sexy buzzwords.
Okay, so here it is.
We got to throw some big data in there, maybe.
Right. So here it is. Predictive on weather patterns, and where it sees a bridge go out, the drones come in, right, and they drop in 3D manufacturing equipment, and they install strengthening, retaining walls on bridges that are at risk from weather patterns.
There we go.
Okay.
Funded.
All right.
Term sheet coming.
All right, great. Well, at least, but you look.
What I like though is one that I don't know if you use Uber much, but
sure.
I don't own a car. I've been using Uber full time for years, which is kind of, it's becoming popular, but I think I was an early adopter of these things. And that's, I think, another important lesson is try to be an early adopter of technology, engage with products early, because what that does is I'm not smarter. It gives me an advantage of having more information earlier, and I've just had more time to process it than most people. And that's by really tinkering, experimenting with things before everybody else is kind of using it.
So this, I love it, because this is inside, like this is deconstructing genius. You have guys who are so successful, you're at the leading edge of your industry, you've got capital, you're investing capital, you're making companies, creating wealth. And
Curiosity of mind.
Yeah, people going, it's overwhelming, I can't be you, I don't have that experience, the gap is too broad, and I think we're deconstructing how you got there. And
Curiosity is a big part of it. Go out, buy things, play with it, and be early, and with that comes insight.
All right. Let's talk about the things that you are very knowledgeable about. So the cryptocurrency, the Bitcoin ecosystem, and the registration chain. So tell us why you're investing in that, why it's not going to be a sidebar novelty, and these technologies are going to become important to how we all do business.
I think there's been, call it, 3 fundamentally disruptive technologies created during, call it, our lifetimes. The first being the semiconductor or the computer. The second being
coffee,
TCP/IP or the internet.
Yeah.
I think the third is going to be the blockchain.
Okay.
And when I say fundamentally disruptive, I mean to the point that every business and every human being on the planet's lives are going to be materially impacted and disrupted.
Okay.
At a foundational level, meaning everything is going to change as a result of this technology.
Let's go through this easily. I, again, run a website that sells barbecue equipment out of Kansas. I have a warehouse. I get this stuff from China and Europe or whatever. I have a website that catalogs it. You click PayPal, put in a box, and ship it. How is this business going to be impacted by some of the technologies?
Well, it's going to be impacted in a number of ways. Let me just maybe give you the basis of the kernel of what the technology is. The internet is made possible because of a protocol called TCP/IP that just made transferring information fast and efficient. The blockchain is a protocol for the management of assets. It's just a ledger. But what it does is it allows you to manage and transfer title or assets really fast, really inexpensively, and highly securely. And it's something that the internet can't do. For the last 30 or 40 years, we have been trying to figure out how to do this on the internet, but TCP/IP as a protocol is not capable. We live in a world that's still built on paper. Financial transactions or settlement takes, typically we run on a thing called T+3. When money is being transferred from bank to bank, it takes 3 days. When you want to transfer, when you buy a car, you're still getting a pink slip. You're getting a piece of paper. When houses still run on titles, the stock market and the DTC, you still have all this paperwork in the background. I believe that we're moving into an area, the death of paper. And when you move away from paper and you start to use technology to do these things, everything's going to be faster and cheaper. So different than the internet, because that was it changed human behavior from a consumer perspective. A lot of the blockchain sort of impact is going to be more kind of back office. But from a logistics perspective, all of your assets are going to be titled in a system that's much better than, call it, whatever software you're likely using today, because you're using a distributed system, which will make it cheaper. And it titles that asset in a token so that you can transfer things very efficiently. From a payments perspective, you're going to get your money faster, your fees are going to be lower, and kind of across your entire business, you're going to see a lot of optimization as a result of this technology. If you think about the history of money, you can't send money on the internet, and you can't own money on the internet. The way that works is you have a trusted counterparty or an intermediary that is holding that asset in custody for you,
right,
and maintaining a ledger for your benefit, where you're the beneficiary. You can now actually put an asset on the internet without any intermediaries. What Bitcoin solved, so think of blockchain as being the operating system, think of Bitcoin as being the first application. And now there's going to be an infinite number of applications. Any asset can reside there. But you couldn't send money over the internet because of a thing called the Byzantine generals problem, better thought of as the double spend. Think of it as if I were going to send you an asset over email, think of it like a picture. When you receive that email, how do you know I didn't keep a copy for myself or send it to 8 other people simultaneously?
That's right. I saw this in True Detective.
From a technology perspective, this is actually, in computer science for 30 years, everyone's been trying to solve this problem.
And what's it called?
It's best thought of as the double spend.
The double spend, right.
And so what Bitcoin did is it solved this incredibly complicated computer science problem, and as a result of that, the world around us is about to change. So from my perspective, I feel like I'm sitting in 1994 again.
Yeah.
And it was one of those, like, because I was young. I was 14, and I got after kind of the internet 1.0 bubble. I was in it, to win it, in kind of a big way at a young age. But it's those, I wish I would have been born 10 years earlier. I wish I had a little bit more life experience. Because I'm never going to see a market opportunity this big again, where the whole world is about to get re-architected. And I've got that sort of excitement, like it's 1994 all over again. But I'm actually mature enough, and I'm at that age where I still work really, really hard, but I'm experienced enough that I can be dangerous.
Well, I'm not going to bet against you, having spent some time with you. So I do think that once you wrap your intellect around something, that you are going to be right. The major difficulties that this trend is going to take out of business today, from an average business looking out at their daily problems, one is fees, right? One is another security. Third is trusted trade partners. So how does it, and I work in finance. So how does the blockchain solve some of these, these real business problems?
Well, it's going to eliminate the need for trust. I call the blockchain the internet of value, or in some cases the internet of trust, because it becomes trustless. Okay. It eliminates the need for trust, and that's at its core what the technology does. It's just a big distributed ledger. Think of it like an Excel file that's being maintained and updated and managed over, call it, millions of computers around the world.
So how is it not, in terms of trust, how is it not hackable? Why is it safe? How does, I'm running a business, again, go to my barbecue distribution business. I've got $1 million in reserves, in cash reserves, which I run my business. It's also sort of mine because I'm the owner of the business. How do I trust the blockchain with my $1 million? That I don't log in one day and I'm Sandra Bullock in the net and it just goes, it's just blinking and goes zero.
Well, I mean, that's historically been a risk, and anyone that's probably read about this has probably seen some headlines that would give you the impression that it might not be safe, and that's because the technology is just early. So again, if you think of the internet as an analogy of TCP/IP, the internet wasn't useful until some basic infrastructure was built, and that's largely what I'm financing today, is what I'd call, we're financing the building of the bridges, the roads, and the tunnels. That infrastructure layer that makes it useful. The internet wasn't useful until you had a browser and an email client and DNS and things like search.
I think you mean kittens weren't useful until you had browser and DNS and search and HTML5. Right.
Yeah. Okay. And so we're basically building out that infrastructure so that any member, think of the least technologically savvy member of your family should be able to use this with complete comfort and have no risk of sort of loss.
So what are the holes in it that we're fixing? Why isn't it complete today?
Largely because it takes time. I mean, because this is a system where money is involved at scale, it takes time for people to trust a technology like this. You want to see that it's been live and in the wild for a while.
Yeah.
You don't want to trust your money to a prototype. You want to trust your money to a system that's been battle tested.
So maybe a metaphor is robots, right? So robots first appeared in the factory where they're, and it welds and it goes, okay, it can do that single job pretty well.
You're not going to have it doing open heart surgery or brain surgery on you until you've seen these things in other environments for a while. Yeah, so there's that piece of it. Then you need capital formation. So the industry's taken in about $1 billion of venture capital and angel money over the course of the last 15 months, which is more than 1996 internet. But in 1996 internet, it cost $5 million to build a basic e-commerce business. Now with open source software and AWS type services and you've got all of these things, the world has changed. You can build a business with 50 grand. So this $1 billion of capital is being deployed to develop those bridges, roads, and tunnels.
Acting like 10 billion.
Yeah, but it takes 1 or 2 or 3 years for that capital to be deployed and turned into products and services. So over the next 1, 2, or 3 years, you're going to see some pretty incredible infrastructure, come out of this that will be the foundational layer.
So, but today there are uses for the blockchain, and you're seeing that sort of very specific welding robot. It's doing some specific tasks.
And
what is it doing well?
So the most basic of things that people are seeing is a transport layer for the movement of money. If you think about money remittance, money remittance is what Western Union or MoneyGram does. It's where if someone here in California, for example, wants to send money back home to Mexico, that industry is called the money remittance industry.
Sure.
It's about a $550 billion a year industry. The Western Unions of the world are making about 55 billion of revenue, so about 10%.
Yeah.
But those fees are actually very, very high for small transactions. So you might be spending 20 or 30% to send that money back home to Mexico. And it's expensive to do so from a compliance perspective, and just moving money across borders is difficult. The financial system is not interoperable. Think of it like as power plugs. You got 110 and you got 220 and you got all these different adapters, and the world's financial system is very similar. It's very archaic. It was designed it was designed for a world of paper.
Yeah,
and
it wasn't designed.
It wasn't really designed, not well. It's because things just kind of evolve into what they are. And so I think the best and most interesting use case today is that it takes a couple of days to send money. It's very expensive. You can now send money from here to there instantaneously and at very, very low fees. And so that's a use case that's very real today, and that's where most of the growth in the industry is coming today. Because as a transport layer to move money across borders, it's really fast and it's really cheap.
So if I'm on the other side in Mexico or Central America, who's there to actually deploy cash?
So we just recently invested in a company that's doing this, but not in a way where you'll ever know. So I think for the next 12 to 24 months, the growth of Bitcoin specifically, not necessarily blockchain, is as a transport layer to move money, but where the consumer doesn't know. So the person sending money from here to Mexico doesn't care how it gets there. I just care that it gets there fast and cheap.
Right.
And so there's a company that just won the Launch Festival. I don't know if you follow Jason Calacanis' thing, but it's a company called Abra, A-B-R-A. It's a fintech entrepreneur, Bill Barheit, very experienced guy. And when he won the Launch Festival, he didn't mention the word Bitcoin or blockchain once in his entire pitch. Because that's the plumbing. It's just how he moves the money. It's not necessarily something that you, the consumer, needs to know. And we're also seeing some interesting progress in that area for businesses as well, not just consumers. But if you're paying your suppliers, your vendors, your affiliates, whoever it is that you have across borders, obviously there's huge amounts of money around the world moving. But you don't need to know that. I just call you up as a business. I say, I can send you pay a lot of vendors in China. Send me the money and I will pay your vendors in China, and I'll do it for a fraction of the price that you're currently paying. And your vendors will give you better deals because they're going to get their money faster.
Yeah.
But you don't need to know how I do it. As a transport layer to move money across borders, there is no better technology in the world today. And it's right there. The use case is real. And anyone that gets on that bandwagon benefits immediately. Now, some of the other areas where it's less useful, but obviously has long-term interesting implications, would be around payments, merchant processing, things of that nature. Credit cards are charging, PayPal is charging. Call it, if you're an internet company, call it 4 to 7%, because you're not taking into consideration, there's the fees, but you also then have all the customer service costs associated with dealing with it. You've got, fraud detection systems, you got fraud, you got chargebacks. When you look at your all-in costs of processing payments, it's
10%.
More like, it's upwards of 10%.
Yeah.
This technology brings it down to basis points. At the highest end, you're looking at 1% all in. And if you're a company that actually is selling a physical product where you've got a cost of goods, you're not selling software or virtual stuff, your margins might only be 20%.
Yeah, you care about margin.
Yeah, that incremental savings literally can move the needle in a way that's really material. If you're selling software where you have a one-time cost to build it, okay, maybe that not as much, but anyone selling physical products, it's a huge deal. That margin, expansion, can double or triple the profitability of your business.
What's wrong with this statement? The core technology is sound and stands up to all types of known stress testing and doesn't have mathematical, physical, or business sense failures in the core technology. as it starts to be deployed in these different use cases, human beings become involved and failed systems get put on a core technology which is otherwise sound. And that is the things that we're starting to fix today, is the infrastructure of how humans, with their foibles, flaws, and
Yeah, we're trying to make it human proof.
illegal, valid greediness cannot weaken the usability of the core technology. Am I anywhere?
Couldn't have said it better.
Okay. What I'd like to do then is let that thought sink in. And so if I want to start learning more about, in my business, or this trend line of the blockchain, where should I start from having seen us talking? Where should I go if I'm watching this? I want to learn a lot more about this fast.
Well, I mean, I think it's because it's a short read. The genesis of all of this, it's worth reading the original Satoshi white paper. It's not long, and it will help you understand the foundational layer of what this technology is. Beyond that, I mean, wow, there's so much content. And
Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations, Guns and Steel.
Actually, it's worth spending a little time on, because money plays such a central role in human life, but so few humans actually know what money is, where it comes from, why it even exists. I mean, I'm surprised by how little knowledge people have of money and where it comes from and why it exists. It's a pretty good question to ask yourself, what is money? Because most people don't know.
Okay.
Or where it came from. So that's fun to go back into the Wealth of Nations type stuff, and that, just for intellectual curiosity, is a pursuit I encourage everyone to go down. But to understand this stuff, the world is changing rapidly. Obviously, the world of blockchain time is running at like 10 or 100 times internet time. So any static content I would give you is probably not worth using. But in terms of resources, there's an industry news site called CoinDesk, which will have a lot of data there, and they're releasing sort of quarterly reports and kind of the state of the industry. That's a great resource. There's another site called Cointelegraph, which is, I think, pretty useful. But generally, if you want to really dive in, there's some great podcasts. It's a thing called Let's Talk Bitcoin, and if you spent 100 hours listening to those episodes, you'd probably be as knowledgeable as I am right now.
Okay.
So that's a pretty fast path.
I very much doubt that, but if anybody wants to go and read all that, we will do a Brock battle test with your intellect and see if that is in fact the truth. One of the things that's very interesting to me is you're, as involved as you are in this technology, you are investing, as you said, as an index fund in lots of instances of companies working on the infrastructure for the blockchain. So making lots of investments in relatively early stage companies to try and see which ones which of the baby turtles are going to make it to the beach. Because the mama turtle goes, I don't know, I got 1,000 babies, right? They got to get to the beach. I love this little one named Henry, but if I help Henry get to the beach, then 997 other ones could get eaten by seagulls. I just got to let them go. All right, that's definitely an index fund.
Yeah, no. So I started a venture fund because I'm sitting and looking at the sort of market opportunity here, and I'm going, wow, it's big. How do I want to play it? I'm an entrepreneur by background, so I can go start a company and be CEO and do one thing.
Right.
But I'm not sure about where the value is going to be created. But I know it's going to be created in many places. So instead of taking the entrepreneurial route, we started the first venture fund.
Okay,
that
so
was
slow
focused
down for a second.
exclusively on investing in this area.
Who, in terms of limited partners, guys who are giving you the money to invest, who buys that thesis? Right? We don't know exactly where things are going to go, but this is a major trend line, and we're going to participate in it as smartly as we can.
Yeah.
So who goes, I know I'm going to have 8 out of 10, 7 out of 10 misses, but the ones that I hit are going to be around the bases.
Fortunately, I think we've got the smartest LPs you could have. I mean, my LPs are venture capitalists, some of the most well-known in the world, on their personal accounts. Basically, they're going, I know something big is going on here, and this is a way for me to be smarter.
So what I'm hearing
let's
is
give Brock some money.
Institutions don't really bite on that. Hey,
today it's a little early. So it's
too early.
VCs.
So
it's bankers from the top banks,
Sure.
but on their personal
guys.
accounts. I've got 15 and 16 Bitcoin CEOs as LPs, so as the entrepreneurs, it's a way of getting diversification. It's kind of who you would expect, the smartest possible people, but on an individual basis.
It's CRGs, crazy rich guys. Companies come in and they go, I'm the, we think the blockchain is, we talk about blockchain is important for media distribution rights, okay? And we have a plan, and we've started a company, and we have a business thesis for management of digital media rights with the blockchain. So how do you start underwriting or assessing that company to say it's a pass, or we're going to deploy cash into it?
Well, I mean, the most important thing typically is the team. Is this a team that I think can execute and build a great business? Because that's the most important thing. Even if the idea is great, if the team's wrong, there's no chance we're investing. So team comes first. Second is this is an area where we believe there's a big market opportunity. Do we believe they're solving a real problem where enterprise value will be created as well? Because there's value creation and there's also value capture. I have to believe that they're going to be able to capture value.
Yeah.
Are they the right people focused on the right problem? Do we think the market timing is right? What does the competitive landscape look like? But net, ultimately, okay, for that particular business, try to understand the potential partners they're going to have as well, and that might be some of your sort of references. Reach out to the companies that they're going to need to eventually work with and find out, is this something that you guys would do? Could you envision yourselves working with these groups? Because anytime there's a disruptive sort of technology, there's normally an incumbent, and that incumbent normally is at risk. And try to understand how are the incumbents going to behave. Obviously, we're quite comfortable challenging incumbents. Inherently, this is an industry that most people would like to go away, and that's an interesting thing that's happened over the last couple of years. Is really, I think the banks had said, we hate this technology.
Sure.
To eventually going, okay, you can't uninvent something that's been invented, so let's get smart about this technology. And most of the banks over the last, call it 3 or 4 months, have all kind of come out in strong sort of support now of the industry, whether it be Goldman Sachs, Royal Bank of Scotland, JP Morgan, Citibank, UBS, Barclays, BNY Mellon. I mean, all of these banks have come out in a pretty big way.
What about the intermediaries? I mean, PayPal's intermediary, so there's these, 100, 300, I know a $700 million intermediary that's in credit card top-off, right? Yeah. Credit card top-off is sort of, first in line to take the bullet on any kind of blockchain, Bitcoin, cryptocurrency.
Yeah, I mean, the industry that I think is most threatened would be something like title insurance, because it's an industry that I think doesn't need to exist at all. It's not normally most of these industries are not going to go away. If you look at the value chain, it's going to, maybe margins are going to get eroded, but maybe margins expand because your back office, you can be more efficient in what you do. And I think all the banks are looking at blockchain technology essentially as, I think, a back office solution right now. From their perspective,
sure.
I think they're going, I can cut my cost by 80%, which means I think banks are seeing this as a potential for huge profits for them.
I mean, if you look at ING or the large banks that do, deed storage or title storage, they have these giant aircraft hangars, abandoned aircraft hangars, protected by fire deployment systems that keep, half of it's underground, that keep the original deed. And if that, there's cameras and fire suppressant systems and guards, because if that stuff is gone, the economy is gone.
But the nice thing is, it can all go away right now, and it doesn't make the economy go away.
Yeah, so those are the guys that are nervous. I want to go back to funding because we got off on a good tangent, but a tangent.
So we'll go all stages too.
Okay.
Because we're a sector-focused fund. We're stage agnostic. You don't want to be, we're sector-focused and only do seed. Normally want to see, okay, a minimally viable product, preferably like to see customers, like to see revenue. Obviously, the more of those things a business has, the more likely it is you're going to get a yes out of me. The less of those things you have, the more compelling the team is ultimately going to have to be.
I see the other side. I have hundreds of entrepreneurs coming and saying, hey, funding is difficult. What can I change? about my pitch to a venture capitalist, right? And so we're throwing out 100 terms here that I just want to get focused on a couple. So team, I think people get very confused about what a great team looks like to somebody who's going to write a check, all right? So I think on the other side of the ledger, the entrepreneurs, they think, hey, I've worked somewhere before, I have a track record of being, in an early stage company, I put my own money, into this project, and I have affiliated people from this industry involved. And they think sort of that's the team checkbox. Let's get deeper into what a rock star team really is defined as.
Well, I mean, I think you check most of the boxes kind of generically.
Right. Right. So we're in a gray area.
Right. And there's no right founder. Founders, come in all shapes and sizes. And there's
we're going to go there next, right? So I don't have that background because the guy from Dropbox, he didn't have the background. So we'll go to the guys who don't have the background and the fix. But for you,
it's kind of like dating. It's kind of like dating.
Okay.
You kind of know it when you meet it.
Okay.
It's kind of like love at first sight. That you meet someone and you just go, I love this person. I think they're going to be hugely successful. I think they're going to kill it at whatever it is that you're doing. And you're going, and I go, please take my money.
Okay, let me try and build a proxy for an awesome team. Okay, two guys who are complementary. They don't not both.
So let's have a female founder.
Okay.
There's a guy and a girl.
Okay, a Chinese female and a African American male. All right, now we have a politically correct startup. And thank you. That's good. We don't do enough of that around here. Thank you. Okay. And so one's a heavy engineer, and one is an engineering/marketing person. For me,
great combination.
Great combination. Okay.
A good co-founder situation.
Good co-founder.
A technical co-founder and someone that knows marketing, sales, business, whatever. Those combinations.
Second, they both wrote checks that we might think is somewhat meaningless, but were painful to them at the time that they wrote it.
It's all relative.
Relative, right.
If the founder put in $10,000, but they only had $10,000 to begin with, that's called you're committed.
You're committed. You weren't previously a UPS bus driver. You were at Yahoo or Microsoft or Bank of America.
Hopefully not Yahoo.
Okay, not Yahoo, I'm sorry.
Well, Google's better.
You were at Google. You were at the, you were at Bank of America's new currency, crypto defense division.
Their innovation labs or something.
Yes. You were somewhere that you left, right, on purpose to go do this. So this was not a step up, right? So UPS driver to cryptocurrency founder. This was a potential step down.
You weren't unemployed and made a job for yourself. You left
Thank you.
a high-paying gig.
That's what I was trying to say.
And probably had more opportunity going down that path, and you've decided to take the plunge and jump off the cliff, and I want to ride with you. Yes, you've taken a big risk.
You want to spend the money on engineering and building stuff, not sales and marketing.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Sales and marketing is okay if it's not like I just have a marketing budget and here let me say, oh, we have $500,000, scheduled for sales and marketing. No, it's when it's direct response type sales and marketing. If I can buy a user for $1 and I know they're going to generate $3 in revenue.
Sure.
That type of marketing, it's called, yes,
all day long.
pour gas on fire as long as possible.
Well, how about this? Your org, when
Make
I look
as big
at
as possible.
When I look at the hires you want to make, it's building stuff heavy and not selling stuff heavy.
Preferably,
Okay.
Yeah.
And let's see. The last thing is
sales depends on what it is. I mean, if it's an enterprise sales product and you're selling into banks, and there are exceptions to that.
And then for me, this is one, but there's other people that aren't me. You might view it differently. Sort of integrity. This is the intangible that you were talking about.
Hugely
you
important.
Like them.
You got to trust them. As an investor in an early stage company, you're most likely going to lose all your money to begin with. Let's take that. And that's assuming that you're investing in people of high integrity and X, Y, and Z. You're still most likely going to lose all your money. When you add the element of, non-trustworthy or people that don't have integrity or lack morals and ethics, the likelihood of losing your money is probably 100%.
Okay. Valuation, right? So I see entrepreneurs who are over obsessed on valuation, and I see guys who just want to build the company and, hey, let's get a deal. It will all sort itself out. How do you view companies that are obsessed on valuation at the at the seed and A stage of financing?
I normally see it as inexperienced.
Yeah.
I'm an entrepreneur first and foremost. I've started lots of companies.
So you care about the cap
I
table.
happen to be a venture capitalist because it's my strategy as to how to play the sector, but I'm an entrepreneur. So in my partnership, I look like the operating partner. Valuation from an entrepreneur's perspective, I think, is not very important because the outcome is going to be binary. It's either a 0 or a 1. And a lot of entrepreneurs are optimizing to ownership versus optimizing to success.
Sure.
And they'll spend 6 months, shopping a deal, trying to get a slightly better deal when they could have just taken the money and spent that same 6 months building their business.
Right.
And so I tend to think that entrepreneurs overly focus on it, but no, great, get the best deal you can and call it a day and move on and build. Optimize to success, because if your business is successful, you're going to make a lot of money. And if it's not, it didn't matter anyway. And so kind of just get that show on the road. I constantly give entrepreneurs this advice and they tend not to take it because, like most lessons, you have to learn it yourself.
Did you just say you gave entrepreneurs advice and they didn't take it? That's so weird to me. Every entrepreneur we meet, we give them advice and they're like, oh, that's a good idea, I'm going to go do that.
Normally you have to make your own mistakes, but when I'm wearing an entrepreneurial hat, I literally just say, hey, all right, I like you as an investor, we get along well, here's your offer, push back once, all right, we got a deal, call it a day, get to work.
Yeah.
And I find that that's probably the best recipe for success.
So as a last topic, I think we're in agreement. We came up with the business that scans weather data using big data algorithms. It finds major weather incidents and deploys drones with 3D printing equipment, which can strengthen bridges and infrastructure that could fail from the weather event. Good company. You and I both commit to it with our time. We're leaving other good careers. We each write a $500,000 check. So there's maybe too much. We each write a 50.
By the way, valuation just changed quite a bit as a result of that.
Yeah, $50,000 check.
Now we'll raise probably another $2 or $3 million to co-invest alongside us, but that's probably now at a $10 million pre.
Well, that's right. That's where I'm going.
We're putting $1 million in where the price just went up.
That's where I'm going. We both write a check called sweat equity. Okay.
Yes.
But we have an office.
Sweat isn't cash.
Yes, sweat. Sweat as in sweat, as in CrossFit. All right, so we have this company, and it's a good idea. We get a decent board of guys. Mm-hmm. We get Bill. We get the guys who have what's the drone?
Well,
what's the major drone? What is it? Parrot? Okay, we get Parrot on the board. We get guys from the Scripps Institute, so we have a real board built out. We've got you and I. We have a little bit of cash.
Now, because not because of me, but because you're in the deal.
Yeah.
And all of the elements you just described, we might actually be able to go out and raise, call it a meaningful Series A right out the gate.
Okay.
I mean, this could be one of those deals where
that's what I'm pushing
you could
for.
raise $10 or $20 million as a seed round, essentially, on a 30 or 40 million pre. And those types of deals do get done.
So we just moved with no real additional money from a $5 million to maybe a $15, $20 million valuation using, I'm not going to call it smoke and mirrors, but using credibility, using experience, using a limited amount of money, using relationships, and starting to build this company in a way that investors really care about.
Yeah, we've just said we've figured out a moonshot.
Yeah.
We figured out a big market opportunity. If we're right, we're going to kill it, and we're the right people to do it. And if not, same risk as you're going to take on any other early stage deal.
All right.
But if you construct the right package to say this is either going to be a big unicorn or not, but I believe there may be a unicorn here. Those are the types of deals that could get that kind of financing out the gate.
All right, so let me finish up like this. This is really important. As this video goes out in the world, a lot of people are going to watch it. My mom, my sister, maybe someone from your family.
I might watch it 15 times just so it looks like it's actually been
so this
viewed.
thing's going to get 20 views, so it's important.
I'll design a script, a bot, just to,
Yes, given that 20
make myself
people
look popular.
are going to watch this, what would you like
I'll be
these
paying people
to
on
do?
Mechanical Turk.
So we're now up to 50 views.
I'll incentivize them with bitcoins.
All right, so we're now up to 75 views of this all-important piece of media. What should we have all these people do that can help and influence your world?
Well, I mean, I do sector-focused stuff, so I love interacting with entrepreneurs. I probably help and give advice to, certainly hundreds of entrepreneurs a year, and of that, dozens of them that are not in my sector, just because I love what we do as an industry. I worship entrepreneurs and everything that we do.
Okay, so let's leave it at this. If you're an entrepreneur out there and you're interested and you have an idea or deal or a project in and around the blockchain, you contact Brock and he will give you advice. If you drop my name, say, hey, Oren sent me,
Valuation
then he'll give you good advice. Right? That's a kind of a bonus of knowing this. But you can get just sort of plain old, hey, I'm on my way to get a coffee advice for free, drop my name. It's still free, but it might be a little bit better quality. If you're interested in the blockchain, get in touch with
and I'm pretty easy to find.
Yeah.
I'm active enough on social media, Twitter. LinkedIn is probably not best for messaging, but I'm all over the place and I'm pretty easy to find.
Yeah, and if you find Brock out there in the real world and he's still ignoring you and he won't talk to you, just run into the back of his car or his Uber and he'll get out and start yelling, and you guys will then have a chance to exchange information and meet.
That works.
Okay.
Just try not to hit me too hard.
I hope you lived through this interview. All right, great. Thank you.